It's huge, okay? Now the responsibility. Here.
Jim, you are just shadow.
Well, I'm glad you feel like that.
Okay, we are going to open up
I get
the,
to do the pledge still, right?
absolutely.
All right.
We're going to open up the finance meeting. It is August 19th, and we're pretty much right on time, 6 p.m. I would ask the council to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask our temporary Sergeant at Arms, Eric Wisher, to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
And justice for all.
We're off on that, guys.
You gotta practice.
We really got that thing done.
Hey, Bob, you did the best.
We're like dodgeball, you know how, is it on 3? Is it on 2? Is it?
Rick is over there going, what today?
Yeah, but I did.
Okay, so we're gonna practice.
It was always in my ear, and the first time you did it, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I sit next to him over there and.
I'm just waiting for Mara. Art clerk, she's important. Thank you, by the way, for allowing us to utilize your
I'm just along for the ride.
significant other, yes. In many ways,
Yep.
you can't whisper and laugh without sharing.
We were talking strategy.
It's part of the rules.
We're just waiting for the clerk to return and then we'll proceed.
Streaming already.
I'll call you out.
No shit. And you do it, you're done.
Hi there, we're just waiting for our clerk. Just a minor detail. Thank you, Mara. Thank you.
Where's one?
Anyone that would like to speak, we do have a sign-up sheet this evening. It's right outside the door. Thank you. Okay. I will. I'm not good at that. Thank you. That's okay? Awesome. All right. We are live and we are going to get rolling here. Roll call. Councilmember Gully.
Here.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Here.
Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Councilmember Cummings.
Present.
Councilmember Salute.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott. Council President Mantel is here. All 7 present. I will take a motion to approve the prior finance meeting minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as transcribed.
Thank you, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second? Second. Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Approval of minutes. Presentation of the agenda. We have quite a few agenda items that are presently on. I do want to notify folks that we are withdrawing Resolution 63 as the 2020 financial audit prepared by the Bonadio Group. We will be going over that in September. So stay tuned. And so that's the only change to the agenda. Once again, withdrawing Resolution 63. And now, without further ado, we'll go into the public forum. We have Bob Blackman, and we invite Bob up to the podium. Thank you for joining us, Bob.
Good evening for all of you. My name is Bob Blackman, and I'm now the president of the Justice Center of Brisbane County. following.
Bob,
Is the mic not on?
Is it on?
Hold on,
I have to get very close to it.
I think you turn and switch it on.
Is this better?
hold on. Eric, do you want? Now Eric is our temporary clerk in addition to his other duties.
Okay, that's
Okay.
better. Good,
Okay.
good.
Yes.
I'm Bob Blackman, and I am now the president of the Justice Center of Mercer County. I assumed that position just recently because of the death of Bob Doherty, who was a colleague of yours and a good friend of ours, a wonderful friend of ours, and as you know, was president of the Justice Center. We at the Justice Center are pleased that the city has settled the Thevenin case, given the family's loss, the circumstances of the death, the cover-ups, and the city's repeated requests for case dismissal. We had actually hoped for a more generous settlement, but the settlement has happened. We can accept that, and we're glad that it is finally settled. That said, the memorandum supporting Ordinance 75 on your agenda is very, very troubling to us, and I think to a lot of other people. It ignores the fact that it ignores the findings of the internal review report. It ignores the report of the Attorney General. It ignores the testimony of the citizen eyewitness to the killing of Mr. Thevenin. So, I'm reluctant to say this, but so the cover-up and the lies continue. That, my friends, is precisely why many of us doubt that police reform is being taken seriously. Yes, we believe that the culture that created Troy's own George Floyd case still exists in the TPD. So the Justice Department urges the council, we urge our mayor, our new police chief, to use the settlement as a teaching moment in the reform process of the Troy Police Department. We urge you to not just smooth things over, breathe a sigh of relief, and ignore the fact that while police misconduct is most importantly a moral issue, it is a financial issue as well. In this case, misconduct is a huge expenditure, has resulted in a huge expenditure or will for the taxpayers. Yes, the city has insurance, and that's good. But approximately $500,000 that will come from the public treasury. That's significant. $500,000 plus the hundreds of thousands of dollars from earlier police misconduct settlements would fill a lot of potholes, help refurbish parks and pools, develop programs for young people, help the underprivileged, and perhaps even more. We're in the early stages of police reform. Please add to the agenda of that training the awareness that misconduct, while a moral issue, has financial consequences as well. Indeed, misbehavior can cost millions, and our officers must be made to understand that and change their behavior. The Justice Center has never advocated for defunding the police. However, if you deducted the cost of lawsuits from the police budget, that would likely be your most powerful vehicle for achieving police reform. Think about it. I'll conclude my remarks by saying that if Bob Doherty were standing here, he would say to you that all we are asking for and all we have ever asked for is a kinder and gentler form of policing, free of the evils of systemic racism. That he would ask of you, and that is in essence what I'm asking of you today. Is that really an unreasonable demand? Of course it's not. But there's one more thing. We'd appreciate some honesty on the part of those in charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. we have Noreen McKee.
Hi, good evening. I'm Noreen McKee with the Justice Center of Rensselaer County. The city has never retreated from its position that the killing, however tragic and regrettable, was lawful. This is from the memo in support of the settlement with the Thevenin family. Troy PD's own internal report disputes this claim and concluded that Officer French lied, engaged in reckless acts in opposition to his training, and is equally responsible for the circumstances leading to the discharges that killed Edson Thevenin. The report also found that Officer French fired 2 shots when he got out of his car before he was pinned by Thevenin's car. How can this administration claim that the killing of Mr. Thevenin by Officer French was lawful? As our president, Bob Blackman, just said, we applaud the settlement with the Thevenin family, but we find this memorandum in support deeply disturbing, and we fear that it will continue to divide our Troy community, and the bitter distrust in our police department will persist. Instead of closure, if not dealt with truthfully by this administration, we fear it could lead to more tragic encounters between the Black and minority communities and our police officers. We urge the council to reject this memorandum in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you, Noreen. Okay, next on the list, Gertha DePass.
Hi, my name is Gertha Tipas. I'm Edson Thevenin's mother, and I'm here in regard of my son concerning the settlement issue, of course. Ooh. As per the moment, let me just say this. You wrote, moreover, regardless of the action of Mr. Thevenin, his family is certain blameless and has suffered. Sorry, my glasses on.
It's okay, take your time.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I just want you to know that my son's action was not regardless, as you stated in your memorandum. His action was a reflection of Black lives does not matter in Troy Police Department. But thank you for saying that we are blameless. But allow me to stand on this truth, and my son is also blameless. And yes, we have suffered, and we continue to suffer. And no amount of money will rid you, Troy, New York, of the blame, or make me stop in pursuit of justice for my son. And thinking that a meager settlement is humane. That statement about humane to pay the settlement for my son is a heart-wrenching. It's almost like a stab in the heart, because there's no amount of money that could justify my son's death, especially when justice is not being done. Okay, my thing is, if you had treated my son with respect and that he deserved on April 17, 2016, that would have been the human things to do. So as for me, that was my Edson widow decision to settle. And if it was my choice as a mother, I would have gone to full trial. No settlement would have been, because there's no amount of money that could justify me being without my son. Just like that.
this case, this situation grieves my soul. It just takes me to such a place I don't want to be. I appeal to your humanity. I understand that if you never bore a black man as a son, you can't feel that. There are even people who can't relate to what's happening all through the world. People starving to death, people being killed by Taliban. They just don't relate, they don't connect. Their humanity. There's a void. Please don't let there be a void in you. Edson was murdered without a doubt. And I understand that you might think that you are being supportive of the police, but you're not. Because you see, some of us have family members who are part of the police as well. Some of us know police officers that we love and respect and appreciate. And we know that there are many police officers who are galled at this. Murder is murder is murder. When a man takes the life of another man for no just reason, our laws of the land require that that individual be prosecuted. There were terrible mistakes made in this administration. There were terrible mistakes made, without a doubt. But it doesn't have to stay that way. First of all, Edson was murdered. It needs to be said by those of you who are in leadership. You must acknowledge this. In order for there to be a healing, there must be truth. There must be ownership. Do you know if a person steps on your foot and doesn't say, "Excuse me," you see that as an assault, as an intent to hurt you, because they would not acknowledge the fact that they hurt you in the first place. If you can acknowledge that Edson was murdered, that there was no legal, just reason for that man to die April 17, if you 5 years ago, if you cannot, then you must take that. Listen, I've said it in the past. I remember not long after Edson's death, a rodent was killed in Freer Park by some officers.
Speak truth. Speak truth.
Rensselaer.
Speak truth.
And our council members spoke out against those officers. And those officers were terminated for running over a rodent. And here we have a man, a husband, a son, a father, a brother, nephew, friend, a man at 36 who could have done great things and received 8 bullets instead. And this council can't acknowledge that, then you don't see that he was a man in the first place. Do you see him? Can you see him? Can you see this mother's son? Because if you can't see her son, you can't see mine.
Speak truth.
I too bore a black man from my womb, and I have fears. I have fears. John, don't you go out this house with that hoodie on you. John, stop walking down the street with your earplugs in. Don't you know that there might be a cop who has a bad day and might come up on you and hurt you? A cop, not a mugger. No, not one of those. A policeman who is not in fear of being held accountable for illegal behavior.
True.
corrupt, and criminal behavior. French was not concerned about killing a man and remained on the police department until he became sick.
True.
There's something wrong with that. Why didn't you see it necessary to terminate the man who was proven to be a liar, and later down the road, here you have two police officers suing the department, suing the city because of this man's racist conduct, and that same man murdered Edson Thevenin. Can't you find it in yourselves to acknowledge that this man should never have been killed in the first place? Have you ever said to this mother, "We are so sorry"?
No. No.
That's your humanity. I don't care about how much comes out of it, whatever comes out of it financially, though, that's. But if you never do that, then you never validate him as a human being. And if you cannot validate the fact that Edson Thevenin was a son, a husband, a father, a brother, a friend, then you will not be able to do that for any of our sons. And that in itself is frightening.
Thank you, Jessica. Next on the list, we have Luz Burke.
Yeah, oh, it's all right.
It was him.
It's Luz Marquez Bimbo. I'm your neighbor. I've been your neighbor for the last 15 years. You know my name. You know my son's name, Asad Bimbo. And next time you see my husband, do not refer to him as Ashawn Davis, who was a young little boy who got killed. You've known my son since he was 8, and his name is Asad. He played with your son, Paulie. I'm here representing Troy for Black Lives. It's no surprise to you. And I'm here calling you on city government to do your job, to hold the mayor accountable, to hold the police department accountable. That is your job. The reason you are city council is because there's a checks and balance between the mayor, between the chief of police, and between you. When you all follow suit, you add to the cover-up. And the cover-up has to end with Edson Thevenin's legacy. It has to end. As I stand here before you, the city, your city, our city, is fighting against Dominique McDonald, who the police non-fatally shot just about 8 or 16 months after Edson Thevenin. At some point, this needs to end. These are people's lives. I know you're not sitting there looking at me like I'm crazy. These are people's lives. When is it gonna end? We had a shooting in 2015 at Thaddeus Faison. Then Edson in 2016. Then Dominique non-fatally shot in 2017. When does it end? When is the police a mistake part of what needs to be held as accountability? Any profession in this country, if they do something wrong, they're held accountable. These are people's lives who live in your city. Our children are killing each other because they don't think their lives matter. There's a connection between police brutality and a high crime rate. There's a deep connection. If the people who are paid to keep them safe do not do that, then we are teaching them that their life is not worth saving. There's a deep connection between violence against women and police brutality. There's a deep connection between crime and high police brutality. That's why every city across this country is skyrocketing with violence because of the amount of Black bodies that are killed every day. Your job is not to follow Madden, it's to question him. His job is not supposed to follow Tedesco at that time, but to question him. The district attorney's office, Apple office, supposed to question all of you. And we, the taxpayers, pay for your jobs and their jobs and the district attorney's office. On top of which, you all are telling us this isn't costing us any money. You have to come up with $250,000. Our city's got roads that have been in the middle, right there, middle of Central. There's a big ass concrete pool because the street is torn up. We have youth that need programs who you can't fund. So when we say defund the police, it's because we can't keep this cover up going. And so I'm going to read to you what I read downstairs to the media, because I want you to hear what we're telling you. We disagree with this administrative statement, which continues Troy's nonstop pattern of deception around the cover-up of Edson's evidence and the current Dominique McDonald case. The facts, contrary to Troy's administrative statement, are very much in dispute, including the forensic evidence and the New York State Attorney General's investigation. This settlement by no means exonerates French or Mayor Madden, the City Council, or the Rensselaer District Attorney's Office, whether it's Abeloff or Donnelly, from an entire masking of the truth regarding this case. According to an internal investigation, both by the State Attorney General's Office and Troy's very own police department, French lied in his testimony, and numerous facts are at dispute. This report contradicts Troy's administrative statement, which blatantly and misleadingly implies that French was justified. Similarly, Troy continues to fight against Dominique McDonald within another case as a result of him being non-fatally shot and injured. In both cases, the police assert and the city supports that Edson and Dominique had weapons since they were in the driver's seat of their cars. To be clear, the stance declares that at any moment, the police may claim any driver is an armed civilian, effectively making it open season on Black drivers in the city of Troy and across our state. Our very own president of our city council was being stopped for a DWI and literally was harassing another driver and made it home. Edson needed to make it home, people. He needed to make it home. Give him a ticket and let him come home. He didn't make it home. Y'all didn't apologize to the Edson family. Y'all followed suit in a cover-up that you didn't even know or may not have known. I have no idea. But you didn't do your due diligence to check and question and figure it out. And y'all evolved from different parties. So clearly your racism doesn't stop whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. And it's got to end. The reason you exist is for checks and balance. That's what policy is about. This settlement does not protect the Black people in this city, whether they're visiting or they're residents here. Whether it was Edson who was visiting or Dominique who grew up in this very city. This is why we continue to demand serious policy changes. So there's a settlement and you all can demand some policy changes. You can demand that. You asked, the governor gave you a mandate. You had NAACP, you had Black pastors, you had different leaders from across our city give you suggestions, give you input, and you didn't even take them into the report that was written. So at some point, this has got to end. We've got to listen to each other. You must do better. You must do better. You have to do better. Please, ask questions. Demand accountability. If you don't know, look at other states. There are amazing things that city councils are doing in different states. You can do that.
Thank you, Liz. Eric Fisher, next up.
Eric Wisher, 30 Fairfield Road. I'd just like to thank the council. We just put in service today the third of many pumpers that went back to meetings of 2018. Through your assistance in securing that funding, the guys are very appreciative, the guys and gals, of that support of the department and upgrading the equipment that we use to provide service to citizens. So I'd like to thank you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, next on the list, Raphael Burial.
Hi, dear City Council, dear Mayor Madden. I don't know why the mayor is not here. I find it very astonishing. I'm here because I'm very angry when I read that memorandum that was published, and I think it's horrible, horrible, horrible. And I don't know if you sign it. Nobody signed it, so it's supposed to represent us, the city of Troy, and you are entering that into the record, which I think somebody should make a motion in this city council to withdraw that memorandum from the record. I would like to read to you what I believe that memorandum is saying in plain English. To me, that memorandum is saying we are white supremacist people, and we are very proud of getting away with murder of a black man for very cheap. We are so thrilled that our police department will feel comfortable to execute black people in the city of Troy without any fear of responsibility. $250,000, it is definitely way cheaper than trying to educate and change the culture of abuse in our police department. And you end up with, we won again. You didn't need, you could just shut up and pay the settlement, but you had to go out of your way to make sure that you pander to the family of the police department more than to the family of Edson Thevenin. You fill up all of that with complete lies. It is scientifically impossible that there's been 2 scientific reports by the Attorney General saying is, and anybody cannot believe the bullets could come half through the direction that you are saying that they came through. It's been proven that it's impossible that a police officer was in front of that car when he was shooting. So when you go out of your way to put such a lie in a document that you didn't even need to write that document, you didn't even need to say anything. You could just shut up. So what it is, yes, and I'm looking to all of you, you know, you could just shut up, but you can't. You have to say again, and I think you don't understand, but this is when Luther King said, I believe the biggest enemy of the black people, it is not the KKK, but the white moderate that will always choose order before justice. And this is the moment. You could just shut up. Withdraw that memorandum from the record. Withdraw it. All of you, because you're going to go through history, you're putting it into history, into the legal record as white supremacists, because that's what that document is saying. Because there was no need, no matter what you believe that happened that day, there is no need to do a settlement with the family here and to have, I'm measuring my words. So please withdraw that memorandum and please do something to change this. Because in that document, you are basically saying to the police officers of this city that they can do whatever they want because there will be no consequences to them. And then you will do the same, come here and say, oh, well, we got away so cheap. Let's celebrate. Because that's the tone of that letter, of that memorandum. Please make a motion. There's a bunch of Democrats here. Have the balls. Make a motion and withdraw that. Go in history because that's what you are here for.
Thank you, Raphael. Next. Thank you. Next is Rhea. Want to stand? Rhea, sorry.
Thank you for having me speak. I find it
You can pull that up,
All right.
Rhea. Yep.
It's the first time I've been in person at a city council meeting, so it's nice to see all of you. in real life, and also frustrating that you were able to apologize for mispronouncing my name, but not Luz's, though you are her neighbor and have called on her for over a year, I think multiple years.
Okay,
multiple
Rhea, this is not the time to get personal. If you do have an issue, please see me later, please.
Okay, so I don't want you to tone police me or anybody else in this room. I've seen you tone police other city council members. So we're not going to get personal, but we are going to talk about the stark contrast between what has happened to you when you had a DUI and what happened to
Rhea,
Edson.
I am not going, honestly, please speak on the finance agenda.
We are.
Please.
That's what this is.
Rhea,
That's what this is.
Rhea,
It's about white supremacy and racism, and you are the most racist city council member that we have. So you listen up to us.
Rhea.
Because you don't have to listen on a Zoom. You can mute people on a Zoom. But we are here in person today. I am a white, privileged, business owner, resident mother in this town, and I don't have to be here. I can be on my couch right now because I've had multiple employees resign, get hired. I have so much I am dealing with. I don't have to be here. But you know what? I am, because it's fucking wrong. It's wrong.
The language will not be tolerated.
Oh,
It
you're
will
right.
not. Rhea,
How dare I curse? But let's murder people on the street.
Rhea,
So let's talk about it.
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. So we're going to talk for a second about this language that is the lawyer covering the ass of the city right now. This is a finance meeting, and you are currently trafficking in the hopelessness of a mother. The grief and the exhaustion of a mother who needs to move on, who has suffered more grief than any of you can possibly imagine. Grief that you will never even have to fear, that I or my family will never fear. Do not allow this language to show up on the agenda. It's disgusting, and it is an insult to the life of a man who lived. He may not have lived the way you wanted or properly. That does not mean that his life is worth any less than yours. What is your insurance policy? What is the minimum amount on your insurance policy with Geico or whoever, Aflac? I guarantee it's more than what the city is having to pay out in attorney's fees and in the cost out of pocket. You have an insurance policy for when your officers murder somebody, and that's carrying the brunt of this, and that is messed up. We need to stop qualified immunity so that it goes on death. Reform is needed. Change is needed. We are not going away. Black Lives Matter was not a season. It was not performative. It's not a bunch of black tiles on Instagram. And I know that it has waned in popularity because there are a lot of statistics showing that, and that is messed up. Because someone's life should not have to go through statistics to figure out if it's on trend and something you need to care about in your budget this year. I'm going to read, because it needs to be read into the record, information about the Centennial Report, which, by the way, was covered up. Edson was murdered in April 2016, but the Centennial Report, which is dated September 2018, was never made public or disclosed to the attorneys for Cynthia Thevenin, whose federal lawsuit accuses the city, and Sergeant Randall French for civil rights violations and other abuses that led to the shooting of Edson Thevenin. The existence of the report was leaked in 2019, I believe. And when it was leaked, the city asked the judge to reveal who the mole was. This report clearly holds Sergeant French responsible for escalating the situations with Edson Thevenin. Centani concludes that Sergeant French aggressively rammed Thevenin's car off the road and into the barrier that morning. And while the Office of the Attorney General's report describes contact damage caused by the collision of French and Thevenin's cars, the OAG report never considers the possibility that Sergeant French might have run Edson Thevenin off the road. Centani's internal Troy Police Department report concludes for the first time the forensic evidence proves conclusively that Sergeant French's police car sideswiped Edson Thevenin's car while both cars were still moving, forcing it to swerve off the road and crash into the barrier. This information, with photographs showing the matching damage on the two cars, comes from an extensive analysis by a vehicle forensic expert hired to perform an accident reconstruction. It directly contradicts French's claim that the cars made contact only after Edson Thevenin crashed into the barrier. The Centani report corroborates the Office of the Attorney General report that Sergeant French immediately jumped out of his car and deliberately stepped in front of Edson Thevenin's car, shooting a fatal bullet, and I'm so sorry because this is traumatic for many to hear right now, shooting a fatal bullet through his windshield before being pinned The report states, based on the empirical evidence, through the hollow
Bria,
groupings
I
in the
am
windshield,
going to give you an extra minute.
that Sergeant French's version is inconceivable. Inconceivable. But you just stated, correct me if I'm wrong, the attorney for the city just stated in a CYA report that you're about to approve that none of these facts are true. None of them. And that it's so sad that his family got to show up to a trial and tell their truth and their story. How messed up that they sought sympathy in that report for French's family and the city, not the person who was murdered and the family who has to go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bria. Okay, last on the sheets is David Banks.
Do I have your attention? All right. So I hate this podium. I'll say it right now. I hate this podium. Every time I talk at this podium, something terrible happens. Stop smiling. All right. You know, when you smile, you know what last time I saw you smile, right? Is when you were getting several $100,000 for more cops. You stole from the budget last year. What's personal about the city budget? I'm talking about the city budget right now.
Very good.
I'm talking about the city budget.
Please calm
Oh,
down.
you know what's really interesting is you keep saying that you can't respond to us when we ask you a question
David,
until
as the president, I have to keep decorum.
Okay, cool.
Please
Decorum
get to
would
the
be
point.
giving them an apology.
Okay, there
Don't
you
tell
go.
me about
Thank you.
decorum.
Thank you.
Don't tell me about decorum. All right, you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of our money in the future budget so you could buy more police officers, and you did it with a smile. And you know what? You had that same smile. You and you, Ken. You both had smiles when you were eating pizza in front of his family in June when we had our march. You were eating pizza and smiling. That's what you are. All right? So I don't expect an apology from you. I expect you to smile and grit your teeth while you do just the most disgusting things to your residents, your constituents. Where is your soul? You know what? Well, as a white guy, I'm trying to find something that I can say that no one else has said, right? Because I'm a white guy, and everyone else who's spoken so far isn't. And so I'm thinking, like, what do I have? And what I have is I don't understand what this must be like. I don't understand what this must be like, and neither do any of you. All right? And the only thing that I can turn to, all right, is when Moses went to Mount Sinai, left Aaron in charge. And Aaron, what does Aaron have to do? He has to decide whether or not to split the Israelites or let them worship a golden calf. Because they're disagreeing about it because they think Moses has abandoned them. All right? And justice has abandoned this city. And you are worshiping the golden calf of your police department. All right? So every single time that you, Carmela, have to go ask your nephew what to do in your job, all right? And yeah, you know what? It is personal. All right? This is personal. Because your nephew
David,
runs
I'm
this.
going to ask
Your
please
nephew
stop
runs the
pointing,
police
David.
union.
Yes,
Your nephew
that's
runs the
false
police
disclosure.
union.
That's
Of course,
false
this is
disclosure.
personal. Okay,
David,
we don't have a democracy in this city
please.
because our police union runs this city. Why doesn't the police union just get up here and we talk to them? Because they are who run this city, not any of you.
Thank you, David. Even though excuse me, please stop yelling. Even though the sheets are filled out, would anyone else like to speak? Yes. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Emily Keefe. I live at 1 Dyack Place in North Central. Kim, you're my representative. The moment that I was born with privileges that Edson Thevenin did not have. And that is not right. Okay, and I have watched this city do absolutely nothing to protect the people of color that live here, who were here before any of us. We should pride ourselves on the fact that Harriet Tubman had a residence here. Right. Thank you. And what do? We praise Uncle Sam. What did he do? He was a meat packer that encouraged people to join the army. Okay? And that hasn't changed for hundreds of years. Okay, I live in North Central. Last year, I stood in front of Grace Baptist Church and I said, enough is enough. Enough is enough with your hate and putting guns on the street. Not just guns, assault rifles on the streets of Troy. And you know what happened after that? Ishawn Davis was killed because of gun violence. And what has the city done? Because there was another shooting last night on that same block. Nothing is done to protect the people of color in this city. I look at all of you right now. I don't see any representation of the ethnicity of Troy. Because there are so many people in the city limits that should be sitting in your seats. And they are not. I see white face after white face after white face. And why? You are not the majority. You do not speak for the people in this city. All you do is support the police when they kill people of color. I am currently being sexually harassed by one of your officers. This has been going on for months and months and months. He has arrested me, and ever since then, he has not let up. Who am I supposed to report that to? The police? That's hilarious. Facts. This blue line of silence, this blue line that can't be crossed, that, police can't be held accountable for mistakes that they made, for murders that they commit, has to stop. This is New York State. This is not Louisiana. This is not Mississippi. This is New York State, where we pride ourselves on being progressive and open. And what are we doing? We're having a council meeting about a mere $1.5 million that should be awarded to a family whose family member was murdered by Troy police and then covered up by the district attorney and then went to trial, not once, twice. And they had to win this in a civil suit? Where are your priorities? Where? And Kim, I know you know the violence in our district. Where are you? Because the only time I ever see you is at Powers Park. At those
Emily,
concerts
there's
they
about
have.
30 seconds, okay?
You need to focus less on the fireworks and the garbage, and you need to focus on the residents, because I see so many people struggle and I see you nowhere. Nowhere. So think about that, especially since the election's coming up.
Thank you, Emily. Would anyone else like to speak?
How's everybody doing? My name is Messiah. I'm a member of Troy for Black Lives. My name is Messiah. I'm a member of Troy for Black Lives. It's like all that I've taken in over the past couple of days, just hearing the fact that there was a settlement it rattled me in so many ways because I know the mother, no amount of money can bring back her son. It's a loss that you can give me all the money you have in the world, all the money in all your damn bank accounts, and it won't make me feel the pain of losing my son. I'm just thinking about it, and it angers me. And then the fact that you put, like that gentleman stated, this is going to be part of this city's history, and you're going to document it, how you felt, and you more or less honor the murderer's family over the person that was murdered. It's like, what damn world am I living in? I look on TV and the same shit is happening where people are constantly surrounding the truth with lies and thinking they can shove this shit in our face and somehow we gonna go for it. I mean, when is enough is gonna be enough? When is our babies gonna matter? Because if our babies don't matter, I don't matter. What the hell am I? Why do I own a house here? That's what I'm thinking about. Why the fuck do I own a house here? Why do I pay taxes? I will watch that. Why do I pay taxes to people that won't protect me? They give me no protection under these laws. But the very laws that they use they were the laws that they used to enslave me and put me in prison. And it's like, what the hell? Is there two sets of laws? Am I living in two Americas? Where do I turn? We're in a bad place, not only in Troy, but across this country. When y'all think y'all can pay us off for killing our babies, y'all think y'all can actually pay us off for killing our goddamn babies. It's crazy. And then you go to sleep at night and lay down and everybody is able to sleep and get up and eat and go about their days. It ain't gonna be long. They say in 2040, your numbers will be dwindling. 2040, your numbers is them dwindling quick. So what are we gonna do then? We're trying to do it now. We're trying to steal the vote. We're trying to take the vote now because now we're starting to vote. Oh, they're waking up. So we're going to take the voting rights away from them. Or we'll just say, it don't matter what they voted. It don't count. Then where are we going to be? Because I won't live in a world like that. And I got a lot of people that think like I think. I won't live in a world like that. And if this is all the world that has to offer me and my people, then we say, F the world. F the world. I see people jump off of a jetliner. A jetliner trying to get out of a country that we were bringing democracy to. And if y'all think I want some of y'all democracy, y'all crazy. Y'all crazy. So we're headed, where I see we're headed, we're going to be headed for two Americas. Two Americas. That means you're going to have to do your own damn work. You ain't going to have nobody do it for you. You're going to have to do your own work. Yes, you got to do something now. You're going to take care of your own babies. You're going to have to take care of your own elderly people. And you yourself are getting old. You yourself are getting old. So you're going to end up in a nursing home with somebody look like me to take care of you. You better hope they have compassion for you like you don't have for them. Because that's where you're going to end up.
If you could wrap it up, Messiah, that'd be great.
Yes, I'm wrapping it up. As I stated, no amount of money can bring back a baby, a son. I can only imagine. It's a slap in the face. I can't say no more than my brother already said, but as I stated then, Keep doing what you're doing. You raising soldiers, and they gonna fight on my side.
Thank you, Messiah. Would anyone else like to speak before we close the public forum? Okay, we're gonna move into the agenda. I'm not sure if anyone from the administration is out there. Does the mayor plan? Yeah, but we should have the mayor also. And Monica and Nancy, and Steve. Okay, very good. All right, ordinance 67, ordinance approving settlement of tax certiorari proceedings instituted by Riverview of Troy LLC on the assessment roll of the city of Troy. Councilmember Zaluski at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I cannot vote.
Motion, Councilmember Cummings. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion. Rick, do you want to, I believe a couple of council members might have had questions, maybe not. Do you mind going through this quick? Thank you.
I think the memorandum makes it plain that the reason for the settlement essentially was that there was an arm's length sale that took place during the certiorari proceeding. And generally, an arm's length sale is in fact the almost conclusive evidence of the real property's actual value. So it's basically being reassessed. What we're proposing is reassessing it at the equalization rate.
Discussion, questions? Okay.
Council President.
Yep, Councilmember Zaluski.
Rick, so the reduction is pretty substantial on this one.
Yes, it is.
So how?
The building has been vacant for over a year, I believe. The building has been vacant for over a year.
This is 97 Fifth?
Yes. It consists of a small commercial building and at least 2 parking lots, I believe.
Okay.
The arm's length sale is really what
Right, that triggered.
we're going to lose.
Right,
In court.
gotcha. I understand.
They had brought the certiorari proceeding, but then, in fact, according to Dan, what he told me is that the attorney for the applicant was almost ready to withdraw their case, and then they managed to sell it at that price. So,
Thank you.
okay, we're not
Councilmember Cummings.
we're not happy about it, but we have to do it.
So just to be clear, it sounds like it's a couple vacant parcels and then a vacant building.
Yes, they're parking lots for the building.
And so this is, I assume, going to be a relatively temporary reduction. If Unity House is planning to do a big project there, that they'll get building permits and change the valuation again.
It really depends on what they do with it. I mean, Unity House is a charitable organization too, so they may attempt to exempt it.
Further-
The refund goes to the previous owner or to Unity House?
Goes to the previous owner.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right. Ordinance 68, ordinance amending the capital project. 5 ayes, 2 noes. Yep. Ordinance 68, ordinance amending the capital projects fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion. Oops, time's out. Hold on. Okay. Andy, on this one? Just real quick, the bottom line, capital projects expenditure increase. I know you're closing out some accounts. I saw Powers Park in there, and a few others. So can you just explain the 747 increase to the net impact?
Yes, so this is
in advance of closing out the projects. There's what I actually think it is the bike trail. The budget's not balanced. So this actually, the 1,747,000 at the bottom of page 3 on the Schedule A will actually bring the budget of all of these projects to zero. The way the bike trail was set up years ago, the budget was out of balance. The goal of this is essentially to start aligning its preparation for the 2022 budget for the debt payments, where any unused debt proceeds are going to be used to pay down the bond anticipation notes on each of the applicable projects. So it's just get everything in line to make it's to set it up so that it's easier to identify how much we're going to pay back out of the general fund or garbage fund or water fund, what's there for unused debt proceeds, and then what else we're going to pay down. It's the first step of closing capital projects as opposed to bringing forward the ordinance to close it. I can't close a lot of them because of the way revenue is recognized on debt.
Yep.
You recognize revenue on debt as you pay down bond anticipation notes, and then you recognize revenue as you issue serial bonds. So this is all of these projects will be closed next year.
Further questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, ordinance 68 carries 7-0. Ordinance 69, ordinance accepting grant funds from the Preservation League of New York State for the purpose of creating a Lansingburg Historic District and amending the special grants fund budget to appropriate such funding. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Second, Councilmember Gully, discussion. On this one, Steve around? Hi, Steve. Real quick, this, the funding, Preservation League, and I noticed, Andy, you put in state aid. You can do that even though it's a nonprofit, the Preservation League, doesn't matter?
I thought it was state aid. If it's not,
It's not,
If it's
no.
not, I'll get the correct account code and send an amended Schedule A next week.
Very good. But more importantly, Steve, so these monies are going to set up the program, not actually distribute grants, correct?
Correct. There are no grants with the program. Once the area is designated historic, then any business there or residential property owner is eligible for either a 20 to 40% historic tax credit. They would have to go through HCR to get that. There is no, and I just like to point this out, there's no requirement with this that just because you're in the historic district now that you have to go before a historic district review committee. You don't do that. Only if you want to get the 20 or 40% credit, do you deal with New York State.
And you're recommending that we hire Neil Larson
Yes, we did
for the
a,
25K?
right, we solicited 4 bids from 4 we solicited 4 RFPs, and we got 4 well-qualified responses, and Larson was basically one because their price was the lowest, and they have very good experience, and they're local to the area as well, close to the area.
Well, obviously, this will be a huge step toward reinvesting in the burg. And that will also dovetail the recent state legislative exemption.
Yes, I haven't gotten word that that's been signed yet. It's been passed by both houses or both chambers. But yes, so that will be an additional benefit as your taxes will not go up. So it'll be a great incentive for Lansingburg.
And how will folks, what do you see in the process? How will it unfold?
Well, the first thing is, so I've been in contact with Anthony Buchanan, so I want to meet with the neighborhood group in September and discuss this as well as the First Avenue Trail that we've been working on to meet with people to work on that. So that'll be the first step in the process. We probably won't get the actual inventory going until October, November. And so that'll be several months before that's done, and then it has to go through an approval process. So you're still looking at a good year away before this is eligible for anyone to use. And we will be marketing it out along with the 485, which is the state one we just passed, so that not just in Lansingburg, but everybody in Troy understands that exemption. And then in Lansingburg, they would understand posts.
qualify for the additional.
Right.
What do you, what's the area specifically?
So it starts at Powers Park and it runs up to 118th Street. It's mostly between 2nd and 5th, from 117th down to 113th, but there are little trails north and south of there as well. I think I included a map in your package, but it's the one that when we met up in at the 112th Street Park earlier this year, that was the map that was distributed.
Councilman,
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
is that map finalized, or will Larson be looking at?
I'm sure it can be amended, but this was based on our recommendation and then reviewed by New York State. And this is, I mean, we have a lot of people at New York State that live in Troy as well, very familiar with the area. And this was their recommendation to make this the area.
So Larson's not looking at that, they're looking at what's inside of this.
They're looking at this area, and I'm sure they could say, well, wait,
If
what's
something
that?
across the street, they
Yeah.
can let us know about. Okay.
They can, yes.
In hiring Larson, isn't there usually a resolution where we authorize the mayor to hire?
I think in this resolution, is there not an acceptance?
Well, this is the ordinance to accept the money. I don't see the reso to hire them.
So I had done that, and then, so no, that, there's an agreement to sign authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. So, I don't know, Andy did this part, and
Yeah, it does say authorizing the.
Yeah. I think it's one of the lines in there.
Not-
So if the contract's not attached to that in your agenda, we can
Yeah,
attach it.
I see the contract. I'm
Right.
saying usually we separate it out. We have language where we authorize the mayor to sign. We're accepting grant funds, et cetera, and that's what this ordinance is. Normally, we have a separate reso to actually hire the consultant. So maybe the next meeting.
If you want to separate
Yes.
that out, I can
Yes.
separate that out
Definitely.
as a resolution. Yeah, it's section 5, the mayor is empowered to execute and deliver, I mean,
I've never seen them together. Okay.
I think,
All right.
I think it would be, easier just to leave it as is.
Yep. Further questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right,
you.
ordinance 70, thanks Steve. Ordinance transferring funds within the 2021 general fund and garbage fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Council Members Lucy, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Andy, just a couple quick ones on this one. Thank you. I saw that we're transferring out of DPW facilities, or I'm sorry, putting in for DPW facilities, other materials, supplies. Do you know what it's for? And the other materials, supplies, we're taking away consulting, we're putting it in. Do we know the materials and supplies?
The Gulf was for more chemicals to treat the course for the rainy weather.
Okay,
That was for a singular purchase. For facilities, that's for a variety of items. They needed to increase the appropriation, hopefully to get through the rest of the year is the goal with that.
and I take it the DPW snow removal, just unused money?
Yes,
Okay, and then lastly, the special recycling. What are we doing involved with the extra 3?
it's to better align the postage usage within the garbage fund itself. That's for bulk pickup and garbage violation billings that occur. We charge back to the garbage fund, to the applicable department, the cost of the postage. So it's just to better align the funding in the accounts, and to better align the funding within the fund of the departments.
Okay, hopefully it doesn't mean more mails going out to send violations, please.
But maybe bulk billing.
Okay, further questions, discussion? Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Just to follow up on the, can you get us the actual list of, is it just like, is there a list from DPW that you could forward to us, or is it just a bunch of?
They use it, it's a variety of different vendors that they use.
Don't want to add. And then snow removal, That's equipment, not a general amount. So I don't want to be hamstringing us going into the winter here. But
They felt as if they didn't need to purchase any more equipment. I mean, obviously, if that changes, we'll find money to move back.
and we've got the reserve. But can you use for the snow removal reserve? Probably not for that.
For equipment?
Yeah.
I believe you can. But again, the tricky part about the snow and ice removal reserve is that it's got to get replenished within 2 years.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions, discussion? Thank you, Andy. All in favor? Opposed? Ordinance 70 carries 7-0. Ordinance 71, ordinance transferring funds within the 2021 general fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion? I hate to, I don't know if it's you or Monica and Andy. Just a couple quick questions. The Biggie Barker Park, I know that a number of council members have that question, so monies are being transferred for improvements. What's the game plan, Monica and Helen?
And there is.
I figured we could do both. This is the transfer, and then the next one is.
Well, 71, I'll let Andy do that one because that's his legislation. 72, I'll go ahead and do that while I'm up here. Is that okay? So if just a note, there is no gas tank in Barker Park. It was an issue with the legislation. So there could be other things down there, but there is no gas tanks. The Barker Park project, as we all have done, we've driven by many times, and I'm going to be really honest, as I spoke to a lot of people that were down there as well. It's a mess. It's just a mess in general. The trees are overgrown and they're crowded, and the flower beds are disgusting, and the trash is disgusting. So, and that's our blame. And I'm owning that. And I've told many people that. And so we're going to clean it up. We're going to fix it. And so this transfer, Andy and I work together to do that. I have a tree company coming in. I've met with the Troy-based arborist last night at 4:30. I've gone down. I've talked to the people who have occupied the park, had conversations with them, went down at various times throughout the day to look at where shade is. Looked at the sprinkler system, had our crew down there looking at the lights, looking at the camera systems, looking at the trees surrounding it. I brought Dave Kropp. If anybody knows who Dave Kropp is, he was one of the original planters of the park, designers of the park. And I brought him and Marie Gavazian because I wanted to be sensitive to, they're still here, right? And I wanted to make sure I was sensitive to why they planted the park and the rhyme and reason of what they were designing and their intent of the design. So I didn't want to step on their toes either. So we had some really good conversations. We negotiated a little on some of the trees. And we both came away good with that. I did meet a couple people from the Equality of Troy. They came by when they found out that I was down there, and I committed to work with them. If there's opportunities for them to assist and to be part of the plan, when I figure out what that is, I will certainly, I have Emily's number. I will call Emily and we'll kind of coordinate and figure that out. I'll also, if we're going to work in the park on a certain day and have to shut it down while the tree guys are in there, we'll stay in communication with everybody there. While I've been down there, I've been having conversations with people who've been in and out of the park and other people who want to be in the park, and we will put the benches back because I'll be honest with you, the benches were being taken out to change behavior. The behavior hasn't really changed, and all we have is other chairs and other things there. So I'd rather put the park benches back in. We'll have to look at that and see where they need to go. That was part of why I was down there with the shade and looking at that throughout the day. So we'll be going into there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. That's why we transferred that amount of money. The trees alone, there's about 10 trees that need to come out. There's a lot of pruning that needs to be done. The sprinkler system is completely defunct. So we're gonna have to work on that, plus the landscaping itself, and probably lighting. So there's a lot of work. I'm committed to it, and I hope to have it done before the snow flies.
Okay, keep us posted. Other council members before I ask my second question while Monica's up here with Barker Park. Okay. Quickly, I do know, and this might be an Andy question, 115s coming out the fire vehicles. Where was that going?
So that was, remember this past year, we did the discussion with the fire chief about the chassis and using the box and putting a new engine in and all that other kind of stuff. So subsequent conversations with the company that was going to do that, it was actually not going to be what they were told it was going to be. Remember, they were really originally going to have everything was brand new, the wiring was all brand new, and that was not the case. So they won't be spending that money. They did get the new fire engine, and then they're also planning on putting in a new bus for the next budget year.
Okay.
So that sounded like a sweet deal, but it didn't necessarily deliver.
Gotcha. Happens. What about the HVAC system in the new building? That wasn't planned for, or
No,
why do
that
I
was
feel-
not planned for. That was an extra add-on. So that was when we originally worked with the police department to build that impound building, the secondary impound building. That was more of just, I'm going to say storage plus, right? But now that they've been actually using it and utilizing it, they feel that that could be better served with the evidence technicians and with the other crew in there, just to make sure that there was some controlled temperature environment.
And that'll come out of a grant, correct?
Yeah,
Yep.
they're under the explanation.
Okay.
Part of it was coming from the grant and part of it was coming from the budget.
Okay. Further questions?
Council President,
Yes, council members, Liz.
this might be more for Andy. The contingency reduction is substantial. So I just wanted to understand, obviously you wouldn't do it if you thought that it would imperil the contingency, but it's still a big reduction.
It is. This dovetails in my email from earlier this week. We recognized the 20% of AIM that was released in March of 2021. That was 2020 AIM. That is a one-time revenue. As my view, it should be used for one-time expenditures. On August 5th, there was an ordinance passed that amended the budget that put the residual of that extra AIM into the contingency. It has been my goal for several months to take that money and pay off deferred pension loans from prior years. If this passes, we'll write a check to the retirement system for $573,000. It will save $300,000 in next year's budget. That is what that is being used for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Further questions, discussions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 71 carries 7-0. Ordinance 72, I will make a motion to amend this after we get first and second. Ordinance authorizing this, ordinance authorizing the city to create a capital project and amending the capital projects fund budget to allow funding for said capital project. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Before we get into discussion, I'll make a motion to take out the gas tank removal in section 1. That was part of a template in error. No problem, Andy, we got it. And is there a second to, it should be replaced, so I apologize for the Barker, what's the exact wording, Barker Park improvements? Barker Park improvements. That works, Monica?
Yes.
Okay, so the establishment of the capital project entitled Barker Park improvements.
And one other minor correction, Schedule A, 2021 budget, it should be amendments, not amendments. So make that change at the same time if we could.
Okay, that's on the next page. Oh, yeah. Okay. So on Schedule A, it will read 2021 budget amendments, not amendments. Okay. We have two motions on the table. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion on the amendments. All in favor on the amendments?
Aye.
Aye. On the amended ordinance, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion on the amended ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 72 carries 7-0. Ordinance 73, ordinance authorizing and directing transfers of city-owned real property to the Troy Community Land Bank Corporation. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a
I'll
motion?
make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second? Second. Second, Councilmember Steele. Who wants to take this one?
All right, I will gladly take this, and I would like to state, there are going to be questions you have that I'm not going to be able to answer tonight. Tony Tazi's out of town this week, and I know you're going to have land bank specific questions. So you either want to have us prepare for them for the council meeting, if there are any, we can do that. So Deputy Mayor Krzyzewski assembled a task force basically, which included the Land Bank, Troy Housing Authority, and Beacon Properties redeveloping Fallon Apartments, Habitat for Humanity. And we looked at the whole area basically between Dow and I think it's Park. And so the first part of it is that
I'm sorry, between Dow
between Dow and I'm sorry, I got the wrong Glen. Between Dow and Glen.
Glen.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. And so the first part of this is that the land bank is looking for these properties because these properties, as well as properties that they are purchasing from what is called Vesta Properties, which was Father Peter Young, 5 properties from them, as well as their holdings, creates a number of assemblages that they can apply for this Legacy Cities grant, which provides up to $95,000 per unit to renovate the properties. There's a lot of requirements with it, and they've been working on this, and I know you got an email in concern about this the other day. I have spoken with HCR, I have spoken with Enterprise Funding, who doles out the money to the land bank, and they are both on board with the application. It does work for the land bank, and this would be a great project that would bring a significant amount of money to renovate the properties. The real benefit of this is it requires that these properties be sold to owner occupants. And so working with Troy Housing Authority and working with Habitat and as well as TRIP, they have a pipeline of buyers that are unable to buy properties in this really hot market right now, because by the time they get all their grants, by the time they meet all the requirements they need to do to purchase a property, it's already been sold. So this would allow these properties to stay there, and it would allow for a significant number of owner-occupied houses. The other component of this is the land bank has a number of vacant land parcels, and those are not eligible for Legacy Cities. Habitat for Humanity, which works in Troy and works in Albany, has been doing a number of projects in Albany, and they are ready now to do up to 10 projects, which are new construction on vacant land that the land bank owns or other properties that they can get. And you're aware of the Fallon redevelopment, the de-densification. Councilwoman Steele can speak to that if you want, but we met with them. I mean, they were part of this whole meeting, and they as well, while they're probably about a year out, are looking to do a project to redevelop the Fallon Apartments and de-densify it. So this really takes care of a significant 6-block area in North Central and really can make a significant investment. Does the land bank move slower than private contractors? Yes, but they provide owner-occupied housing. They don't keep it for rental properties. And what you need in that area is more owner-occupied housing.
Okay, I'll open up council members, questions, discussion.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, you remembered my name tonight. Thank you.
I remember your name today.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Sorry. Can you, I know we discussed with the Phelan and so forth, with them redoing over there, there was some of these properties that they were gonna take land bank working with Troy Housing Authority, correct?
Yes, so that's transforming right now because some of those properties, we're still working through that. So some of those properties may go to Habitat. It'll probably be another year to 2 before the Fallon project really gets moving anyways. So there's opportunities to find other parcels in the meantime.
So I guess my concern is, when we were discussing this previously, and it was tabled before, now it's coming back out, we had asked for information that we haven't received on financials and things. Are they able to, is the land bank able to fund this? I mean, I know by reading the memo in support, it's saying that up to 5 houses, you have to have 5 in a block.
Right.
And 3 of them, you get anywhere between 75 and 95,000.
So there's funding that comes through the Community Preservation Corp. So they are also an active partner in it, not with just Troy, but statewide with the HCR program. So they provide the pool of money that makes the projects be able to happen, so that the land bank doesn't have to have all the funding to make the project happen.
I guess, you know, we've got land bank property now that's been sitting vacant for quite some time. Particularly one of my mind is 7th and Swift.
So again, this was where I can't answer all the questions for you. Tony can, because I don't know every specific property they have. I know that they've had properties that they have had a difficult time selling or getting finished. And I know they have a number in their pipeline that they're ready to sell. And they've had serious vandalism with one of their properties.
You're talking about 7th and Swift is the double one across from Troy Central Italy?
Yes.
So that property was actually sold, and they're in the process now of actually trying to get it back. So every land bank property that they work with actually has what I'm going to loosely term, because it's such a negative term, a clawback feature. So if they don't produce or they don't do the work or programming that they were intending to do, they have the ability to pull that project back. So that one did have that feature. So Kate Hedgeman, when she was on with us the last time, she actually explained that. And she said that was one of the properties that they're taking a look at to see if they're able to pull that back. So that was one of the ones that they're trying to get back and actually create it into a 2-family versus all one unit. Because remember, that was the challenge they had at the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission, actually revert it back to a 2-family, like a duplex.
Thank you. And I guess my other concern on this is there's an awful lot going on in District 2 with a lot of, we have 51 units of affordable housing coming in, and we have this project that you're talking about coming in as well. And my concern is with the land bank, I don't want these buildings sitting there for years on end before something's going to happen with them.
So the 2-prong project, so there's actually 3 prongs, right? So you have the Beacon program with the Troy Housing Authority, and then their dedensification and RAD conversion project. Then you also have the Habitat for Humanity project, of which that coalition that you asked me to put together and form a plan for that area. So we brought in Habitat for Humanity along with Troy Housing Authority, because they also have a program, a home buyer program, where they actually work with their residents to institute education, home buyer education and programming, and they actually get stipends for that. So they actually can walk into a down payment program, as well as be able to use some of their assistance towards homeowner programs versus a rental program. And then the third project is the City Legacy program. The beauty of this, and in your district, it's a very high rental area, probably over 95% of that area is not homeowner occupied, it's a rental unit base. So what this does is 2 of the 3 projects actually are home ownership programs. So Habitat for Humanity only does 2 units, so it's an owner-occupied 2 unit, and we all know about that. And then the City Legacy program, our Legacy City program, is the same thing. It's an owner-occupied program, and it is working with a developer to renovate the buildings and actually develop them into something. They typically work within an 80 to 120%, right, of median income. So it's not a low income. It's a workforce housing, actually. It's probably predominantly 100% of the city of Troy can live in these programs. So I think that that's the beauty of these 3 programs. And that's the flexibility that the Troy Community Land Bank can give the city, is they can actually partner with different people and different organizations to be able to drive where a neighborhood might need some action. And that's the home ownership aspect of that neighborhood, especially along River Street. You know what I mean? Because River Street is such a commercial area that this will actually give it a little bit of balance.
And how far are we still out with Fallon?
So Fallon, so the challenge with Fallon, with any of the RAD conversion projects, is they go in for the tax credit program, right, through HCR. So they have to compete essentially with all of the other organizations that are out in the state. It's a very competitive program. And with the last year of COVID, they actually only awarded very few, if not maybe just one in the state. So the backup of projects is actually going to bleed into this year and next year. So I think that just makes it more competitive. So the challenge with that is they probably won't apply until next year for that specific RAD conversion project, because they don't necessarily want to compete against themselves for the Taylor site either. So, and also keep in mind that our Troy Housing Authority, and this is why I continuously say that, they're our authority, they're our Troy agency, are competing with all of the private developers as well too. So we need to make sure that we're embracing our own entity and making sure that those conversions go, because they need quality housing just like everybody else does as well. So we have to be mindful of that when we're looking at projects that are coming down the pipeline, is we have to balance that with what Troy Housing Authority also has in the pipeline. So we're not competing against private versus a public entity, and also not losing out on an opportunity. So going back to the budget, I know that was one of the questions. You asked about funding. So the land bank actually has $293,000 earmarked for the purchase of the projects with the Troy Housing Authority project. So those original buildings that they have worked with Father Young, and for some of the other ones, they have that money earmarked. By being able to purchase those and move forward, and the challenge now with Beacon is because that project got pushed forward, we're trying to work with them now to see if we can loosen them up and get them into either the City Legacy program and or the Habitat program. So we can loosen up that $293,000 with Enterprise and be able to get the land bank their money, because they're holding it essentially hostage until they know that the Troy Housing Authority project is going to boost. So that's what Steve's been talking to Enterprise about, and to some of the other entities, to make sure that they know that the city's in partnership with them right now and trying to work with them collectively, as well as the other agencies, to make sure that they can move their program and their administrative capacity ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Two questions. One, I believe the city still owns both 24 and 30 Dow. Are those being discussed as part of any of this?
Trying to remember. One of them, 24, I think those two are merged. Wait, 24.
24 is
24 next to the grid property?
yeah, it's one house down from the grid.
Okay, so we're holding on to that one for now.
Okay, and then 30 is just a vacant lot. Or like, I don't know, down from that.
Yeah, I think. Right, so we're holding that, right, future development. The land bank doesn't want those because it doesn't fit into Legacy Cities program.
Right, okay. Great, and then just for my understanding of the Legacy Cities program, they get up to, or they get?
Up to 95,000, depending on energy efficiency requirements, which are fairly easy to meet. Again, I've spoken, this is money specific to land banks.
And is the idea that 95,000 per unit will cover the entire cost of each renovation, or additional funds will come in from this partner?
There will be additional funds coming through sale price. The 95 might and most likely will not cover each unit.
Okay. So the additional funds, that land bank doesn't have to have that up front. They borrow that from their third-party partner.
They get it through, I think Community Preservation Corp works on that to be able to fund it and finance that, and then receive the benefits out of the sale price. Yes.
It'd be like a construction loan model.
Right. And I know some properties at the land bank before have been sold with a lot of work needed yet to do. Is that an option within this program? Can you sell it to owner?
I don't think that would be a good idea, given, I mean, you have first-time homeowners who have come through a program. So I think the fact that they're going to be owning a property and renting out a unit as well is probably enough of a burden for them without having the requirement of additional work being required.
So it is going to be restricted to first-time homeowners?
No, but it's most likely that's what you're selling to. The program's not restricted to first-time home buyers, but the pipeline pretty much is first-time home buyers.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like a good pipeline. I could imagine there's a lot of value in working on your own building as well, and knowing how it operates. And so I could imagine there being a good system where you're able to give an owner occupier this much money to hire contractors and sort of manage it themselves. but I know that would complicate the program a lot.
I think
Kind
the
of-
funding is going to be, spent before the building is sold. So
Okay.
So that could be a different program.
That's my guess.
It could be a different program. And there's sweat equity and Habitat for Humanity, so I mean, the Habitat for Humanity model is something similar.
That is,
Great, volunteer. Councilmember Cummings, Cheryl said. Very good. Real quick, I love the partnership. I like that twist. I think a couple of us would love to see Tony maybe attend the September meeting, and obviously feel free to email him in the meantime. I'm going to vote to move this forward, but I do have other questions I'd love to hook up with Tony, and we have discussed some. The legacy grant, real quick, what if we don't get it? Is there a backup plan? Will that partnership come into play, or do you see it coming back to the city?
I just think it's highly unlikely they would not get the Legacy City grant. We've spoken with them already. It's limited specifically to land banks. It's a revolving loan, or it's a floating application. So I guess I don't have the answer for you, but they've spoken, we've spoken. Tony has a consultant on board, so they're setting the whole program up. So
Is it on reimbursement? Do you know?
it is,
Yes.
yes, so
Yes,
it's reimbursement.
Yeah, it's a construction loan and then the developer gets reimbursed.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Get on my high horse for something that I've talked about a lot, and that this is a really good development. We've seen a lot of these projects come from HCR where they're funding, $150,000 to $200,000 per unit to build new construction or to renovate a big factory building in our city. And so it sounds like they're getting more for their money here, and we're getting the renovation of some of our existing housing stock rather than the conversion of or creation of new housing stock. So I'd like to see that. I think there's a lot more opportunity there for HCR to be putting those funds into existing housing stock. At the scales they're spending money to create housing in the city, stabilizing our existing housing is a great bang for your buck.
Yes, it is. And HCR is actually looking at another program right now, similar to the Legacy Cities program, that would be eligible for new construction. So it's not a done deal yet. They're still working through it, but
For infill or for the larger new construction?
for infill for smaller units.
That's great. Thank you.
Very good. Further questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ordinance 73 carries 6-1. Councilmember Gully is nay. All right, ordinance 74, ordinance authorizing and directing transfer parcels to the Troy Local Development Corporation, LDC. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele. Thank you for staying up there.
Yes, and just pointing out, Resolution 65 would need to be done before that. That's the seeker for it.
Okay,
But we can discuss the
but
project.
Let's discuss it.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I know you and I tried to connect the last few days, so why don't you take us there?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase this a little bit out of my memo, but basically the city's owned this Sperry building down in South Troy since 1997. We took it in rem for back taxes for a while. We did lease it out, I think, to Playtex Corporation. There were, I don't think it was maintained properly. There were issues with vandalism. It's been vacant for a real long time. The property is deteriorated. Some of it has collapsed. And there is a $35 million remediation needed on the oil that's underneath there from the former King Fuel site. The demolition of the building hasn't occurred because there's asbestos on the roof. And in order to remove the asbestos to take the rest of the building down, when you remove that part of the roof, the structure becomes unsafe. So you can't remove the roof. You can't remove the asbestos without the whole building coming down, which means the whole building needs to be taken as asbestos contaminated material. So basically, with the South Troy Industrial Road, now us having all of the land we need, we're ready to start moving forward on that project. It's going to require the relocation of a number of businesses or offsets to them because we're taking land from them. It's making their operations harder to use. So the LDC has the ability basically to negotiate with them to to remediate the land, not so much remediate the oil, but take down the buildings and use these parcels. So what I am doing, just as we did with the 4th Street parking lot, where it was transferred to the Local Development Corporation and then the Vecino property was built, or with the Monument Square property where the LDC was involved as well to facilitate that transfer. And we're going to have a public meeting coming up in early September discussing that project. So that is moving forward. Monument Square is not dead. It's just taken a long time, and with COVID, it's slowed down a lot. It is moving forward, and it's very promising. So we're trying to do the same thing with this. So we'll go to the Local Development Corporation. The Local Development Corporation would negotiate with potential purchasers and come up with a deal. There is not a loss of money to the city. It's not like the LDC is going to go out now and sell this for $1 million, because there's so much work that needs to be done on this, and it's not, the value of the land is not worth the demolition costs associated with it. So that's what we're talking about. This proposal, the resolution, or not the resolution, the seeker here is just for the transfer of property. So there's no impacts on it, basically. It's a transfer of land to the LDC. A full seeker would need to be done once there is a development plan brought forward.
Councilmember Cummings, then Councilmember Zaluski.
So first, I just want to understand the building itself. There's contaminants under the building itself that needs to be remediated?
I think in front of the building, between the building and the road. I don't know the exact extent, but it's under the ground.
Yep. And I mean, this is one of the last real manufacturing buildings from the heyday of Troy manufacturing. And so it's sad to be talking about demolishing it, obviously. Is there, I mean, has anyone looked at what it would take to encapsulate or
for the demolition?
No, at least for the one that's still standing, rather than demolishing it to.
We will be looking at that. It's got the same asbestos issue. The city was using it until a number of years ago, when it determined that it was unsafe to be keeping materials in there as well. So certainly it would be my preference to be able to save that building or restore it, and that will be part of the negotiations going forward. I mean, the city does need land for certain parts of its operation, especially with the King Fuel site getting remediated and the E-Lot building no longer being available to the city for storage of materials. So we are looking at that. That will be a significant component of this. All of the land will not go to a developer. Some of that land will probably remain for the city to use, but we're exploring the options. We'll be working with developers and trying to get the best deal for us, so that it does make sure the city has the ability to use the site for operations.
Yeah, I mean, so I recently took a road trip and visited an old, it was a manufacturing building from, it's been vacant for probably 50 years. They're doing pretty incredible stuff with using bits of an old historic manufacturing building and then building new office space or whatever else around it. And it really gives a lot more character to the building. It gives a lot more value to the building. And given the history of this location, I think there's a lot of value in that if some of it can be saved as part of a redevelopment of that area. And so, to pave it over in order to temporarily move some trucks down there, some salt down there, I'm concerned about that idea about losing 200 years of history.
The southern 80% of that building is shot and falling down. And the northern section is the piece that, yes, we would put all efforts forward to trying to do something with that. But the southern 80% of this building has collapsed or is about to collapse, and there's no saving it.
No, certainly I walked around, and obviously it can't all be saved. But again, there are things that the developers are doing with that kind of thing in mind. And with that location, it's really super close to Albany, super close to Manan, very accessible for people in Troy. We've talked a lot about what happens once we finish the remediation of this area in terms of what kind of development can go there. And I don't think anyone has had a bunch of gravel trucks or salt as the ideal long-term goal.
Well, and again, the remediation for that area, like King Fuel specifically, with National Grid going in and doing the remediation there, it's going to be, usable for industrial standards. It's not going to be residential standards. Likewise with this property as well. Without a $35 million investment, you're not going to have an industrial
And do they
or
not have
a
access to
non-industrial
secret
use
fund?
there. I'm sorry?
Do they not have access to secret fund?
There's really not, I mean, there's no funding available for that. There may be money coming out in the future, but at this point, there's nothing available.
Because you need an actual project to get funding, basically, right?
Correct, and you need federal funding for it, and there's a long waiting line, limited funding.
Okay. So I guess I just want to be cautious here in terms of how can we preserve as much of that possibility while moving forward with the South Troy Road. How much are we talking about moving down this way, and how permanently?
Well, for this site, it would most likely be a permanent relocation. However, as that area redevelops with the industrial road, with what I anticipate will be some major mixed-use redevelopment in the area of Posting Hill North and South, the values of the land will go up, and at some point, there's no reason to have it be just for an industrial use. There's probably better uses.
So are we talking about sale of a portion of this to someone else, or are we talking about a 20-year lease?
It depends. It really depends. I mean, it may be something that a potential purchaser does not really want to take ownership of because of the liabilities with it.
Yeah.
So it might be something that the LDC retains and leases out to them.
Okay. I guess I'll express my preference towards that, ideally with a non-renewable clause eventually. Obviously the transfer station's there till at least 2038, I believe.
Yeah.
The remediation from National Grid is going to take a while. This is not a immediate timescale thing, but
well, so the
on the 20
National Grid
timescale-
remediation land, I mean, that land will most likely get sold. That's owned by the Local Development Corporation, and the Local Development Corporation has been paying HUD 108 loans that the city took to purchase that property for 10 years, and it basically does have limited funding. It's got assets that are worth more than the balance of the loan. I see the LDC at some point selling that property.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I mean, I think that's all I have for now. Lots more to discuss.
Councilmember Sallusti.
Council President, Steve, so the 35 million for remediation and the 1.5 million for demolition, what's the plan for that? Who's going to foot that bill?
Well, so the 1.5 million would hopefully be taken over by the leaser or purchaser of that property. 35 million, as long as there's no subsurface, as long as right now it's all right the way it is. So again, the city's on the hook for it at some point. Something may have to get done with it, but if there's just encapsulating basically of the property and using it as is, we're not under the gun to do anything with it for now.
It hasn't been capped yet.
It has not been capped.
Right? There's been no remediation done.
There's been no remediation done. It's petroleum products, but no, there's been no remediation done there.
So we're thinking that a potential buyer or lesser will foot the 1.5 million for asbestos remediation, for demolition.
Right, or come up with, right. I mean, it'll become up to them to basically determine how they want to remediate or demolish the property, and maybe their costs are going to be less than what the city's costs are. But yeah, it will be up to them to handle the demolition.
But the 35 million for remediation, there's no plan to cover that at all. Like there's no one's gonna come in here, whether they're gonna lease or buy, and say, oh yeah, I'll cover the remediation of the site.
Right, that's a piece that still needs to be worked out. They are not gonna just say, I'm gonna take on a 35 million for a $1 million piece of property.
As the councilman said, that's a big piece. That's
It's a huge piece.
Yeah.
It's a huge piece, which why it is likely that we may just end up, we could just end up leasing the property, a long-term lease.
And when you say we, it's the LDC.
It would be the LDC, yes.
Oh, and so I should mention, full disclosure, I serve on the LDC, but I will not be in attendance tomorrow when this is voted on, which is probably a good thing because I'm voting on it now, so I probably should vote on it twice. Right?
Actually, this is not on the agenda tomorrow morning because this won't be a resolved thing until September 11th, if even. So no, it's not on the LDC agenda.
And I have no financial interest as an LDC board member, so I'll still vote on this.
Councilmember Zaluski is our council representative. And who else? Council, that's it.
The LDC.
With IPAS too. Very quickly, you should know, full disclosure, I told Steve, I wasn't really happy, like, getting this for the finance. Usually we talk about major projects like this, so I definitely was not happy getting this that last Friday. Honestly, I would have put it through planning first, so we could talk about it a little. We definitely want to see South Troy a working waterfront. We want to see some mixed use, great opportunities. We know that. At the same time, I was reading in one part of your memo where you talked about the city DPW storage. And I know you talked about putting vehicles potentially down there, but then you said that would eventually return to the city. So are you talking about a portion of what you're proposing to transfer now will come back to the city?
I think that's what could potentially happen. I mean, the LDC could continue to own it that's what's happening with the Alamo right now. That's what's been happening with the ELOT building for a number of years, is that the LDC has owned it and the city has used it. But I think ideally, if there's a portion there, it would go back to the city once it's determined how to configure the property, how to clean it up. But again, the city needs a place for a salt pile or its own little salt shed in the area, not a big salt pile, but a little salt shed, and storage of equipment. We've got a fire engine right now down there in the ELOT building. We have a lot of equipment that's down there, and it needs a home.
And I noticed you mentioned LDC as potential purchasers lined up already.
So yes, we've been discussing this with basically businesses up in the businesses further in South Central that need to relocate because of the industrial road project.
And then we might as well kill the resolution, not kill it, but do two birds with one stone. I'm not a bird killer. Saying that, the resolution for the seeker, the short environmental assessment form, Steve,
Yep.
it has the Troy City Council as the lead agency. I mean, that took me off guard also. Just this whole process, I really would have liked to talk about it like weeks ago before tonight. So saying that, I did notice was historic Mark Diaz was there, I had thought, or archaeological significance.
No, there's, the building is, again, it was a horseshoe factory. It's potentially a historic site, but we're not doing anything to it other than selling it. So that will have to be
So
reviewed.
it would not impact it, yeah,
No.
12A.
Nothing would be, right.
Further questions, discussion?
Yes.
Yes,
Council
Council
President.
Members Lucy.
Steve, you mentioned, there'd be a small salt pile there. So because you brought up salt pile, what about the large salt pile? Is that slated for this area or not?
No, it's not. The intent is that would move to the King Fuel site.
Okay. And we're looking at, now, last time we talked about it was probably 6 months ago. So now we're looking about 1.5 years.
Well, again, so the license that the city or that the LDC is negotiating with National Grid right now has 3 different phases. It's a little amorphous on whether you do all 3 phases at once or if you do them sequentially. And the shortest phase is 18 months. The longest phase is 2 years to 2.5 years. So the whole thing could be done in 2.5 years, or the whole thing could be done in 5 years. But the first phase, which is 18 months, would accommodate a partial relocation of the salt pile.
Thank you.
Further questions, discussion?
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
I guess I'm a little confused because I'm trying to figure out what company you would have in line to buy that piece of property with a $35 million tag over the top of it before they even get to put a shovel in the ground. So I want to say that I think Councilman Cummings would hit the nail on the head, which I think is, since that area is not developed yet and still under the process of being cleaned up, it would be more of a benefit to consider just a lease on that property and not a sale of that property until we can figure out what the heck we're gonna do with the rest of that property down there. So I just,
Well, and again, nobody's gonna do a $35 million remediation.
so you're saying if people want to buy a property, they would have to know that that's there, right?
They do know that that's there. The discussions so far, so they've talked about purchasing it. Again, that needs to be worked out, and it probably will end up just being a lease for that condition. Again, for what they're looking to do with it, it doesn't require a remediation.
Will we have any protection from anybody who leased the property that they won't add to that? Probably, do we have any protection if we do something like that as a lease?
Well, that will always be a condition of the lease. I think times have changed. People aren't doing that, but that will certainly, I shouldn't say people aren't doing that. People probably are in some cases, but that would be a condition of the lease.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree. Thank you.
Further questions, discussion? Councilmember Cummings.
So what's the advantage to having the LDC negotiate this lease instead of the council?
I think that the LDC has the ability, it's more flexible. It's your economic development entity that has the ability to come to terms more. They can work with an individual purchaser as opposed to, they don't have to go through the RFP process, and there's really no benefit to an RFP process here because you're not going to get anything for this. We've owned this thing since 1997. It's not like we're going to RFP it out and sell it. So we have a little more flexibility in how we can work with the developer or purchaser, and that's the main thing. Again, just like we did with the 4th Street lot with Vicino.
Could conditions of the transfer to the LDC include that the remaining standing portion of the building not be stabilized?
I would really hate to put that in there. I mean, again,
hate to give up that power.
Again, we'll be working as hard as we can to try and preserve that. But again, to limit us, if part of that building collapses next week, I don't want to have to come back to you and say I need a resolution amended because of that. Again, there's a reason the city moved out of that building. It was because it was determined to be unsafe for storing equipment in. So I would hate to put a restriction like that on it and have something come back and change in a month or two.
Yeah, but I mean, you initially came to us with, we'd like to demolish it all, and we pivoted quickly here, but I'd like a deeper commitment to saving this last bit of our history as the place that invented the mechanical horseshoe creation.
Yeah, so how did I know Deputy Mayor was?
With all due respect, Councilman, the economics of this site are going to far outweigh any emotional attachment we have to history. It's a $35 million environmental cleanup. It's probably a couple $1 million price tag. I love that building. I was the one who walked around with Michael Barrett and Tom Carroll and had the Sperry family and the horseshoes. We were going to recreate everything. We don't take care of it. And to put and strap a potential leaser or buyer because we didn't take care of something to now they have to take care of something, and now we're taking their land on top of it, it just does not make sense. If something was going to happen with that property, when we had a huge investor like the Sperry family who had money and they didn't even put their money behind it, I think that we have to kind of start taking a look at that. That land has sit defunct for decades. And I think it's now time to actually start looking at it and start incrementally looking at economic development from the bridge, the Congress Street Bridge south. And in order to implement that change over the next couple decades, we have to start taking these moments and being able to move this forward. We are saying that we'll contemplate a lease, so that way it's a temporary, maybe 20-year lease again, but we have to do some incremental change. We can't just wait because we've been waiting for a long time and nothing's happened.
I agree.
Thank you.
Councilmember, I think your point is more not so much, I think your question was very fair, I should say, where you asked, how can the LDC do better than us? And, I honestly don't know that. And Steve working for both the city and the LDC, it's a little tough because he represents the LDC, but he also represents us. But saying that, I was not for transferring 1 Monument Square property. You all know that. Obviously, I'm for developing it. Obviously, this property has some potential. I would like to know a little bit more. I think we're kind of doing it at the last minute. I guess I'll vote to move it forward, but I totally have a million questions, Steve, so I need to sit down with you.
Okay.
And so saying that, further discussion, questions. We can't vote on this ordinance yet until we vote on the seeker. Resolution 65, resolution determining that proposed unlisted action shall have no significant adverse impacts on the environment. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution 65 carries 7-0. Ordinance 74, ordinance, we have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion. Once again, please, projects like this, you've got to get to us sooner. You have to. Further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? 74 carries 7-0. Ordinance 75, thank you, Steve. Ordinance authorizing settlement of claim with Cynthia Thevenin, plaintiff B, the City of Troy, et al., defendants, U.S. District Court, Northern District Court of New York, civil action number 1/16-CV-01115 DJS. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Rick, thank you. The memo, you heard earlier, maybe, thank you.
Council President, first of all, I'd like to say so there is no misunderstanding. The council did not write the memo in support. I did. The memorandum represents the position of the administration as to how the settlement arose, as to what it means, and as to why it should be adopted and authorized by the council. I disagree with the people who spoke before, but I don't want to get into a debate. I stand by the memo. I believe it is based in the evidence. I would like to say one word, though. I did listen carefully to Mr. Thevenin's mother, and I recognize that, his death is a tragedy for her family and for his children and his wife and for the city of Troy. And no one takes any joy or pleasure in or any type of happiness in what occurred. I don't agree that he was murdered, but his death is a tragedy. Her pain is real, and I am horribly sorry for her loss.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions for Rick? Further discussion? Councilmember Steele.
Rick, this has brought to light something that I'm wondering if we could institute a change regarding these sorts of memos, because it is, the way it's written, it is unclear. It becomes part of the permanent record. It looks like it is a voice of the council when it is not. So I'm wondering if you, going forward, would please consider doing as Steve and some of the other department heads do, is memo to the council from the corporation council, the date, the subject, and then the body of it as a memo. So it's clear to the public that this is indeed your words, your recommendation concerning the legislation.
I have no problem with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Steele. Thank you. Further discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 75 carries 7-0. Resolution 63, resolution accepting the 63 is withdrawn. 64, resolution appointing a commissioner of deeds for the city of Troy. Council President Mantello, please take out at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second? Second, Councilmember McDermott, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 64 carries 7-0. Resolution 65 passed. Resolution 66, resolution of Troy City Council recognizing the 250th anniversary of Lansingburg. Council President Mantello, Councilmember Gully, Councilmember Ash McPherson, all are welcome to join this reso before the September meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember McDermott. We can read it in full length at the September meeting. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 66 carries 7-0. Resolution 67, resolution honoring former city council member Robert J. Bob Doherty, 1944 to 2021. Everyone is on this reso. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele and all of us. I'm not sure if we want to do it tonight or wait till the September meeting, totally at the discretion of my colleagues. Okay, we will wait till the September meeting. I hope you're watching, Bob. All right, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 60.
Oh, wait.
Oh, no, that's when we adjourn. Resolution 67 carries 7-0. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, a motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Cummings. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you. Bob Doherty would do that often. In memory of you, Bob. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Why did I vote no? Last 2 meetings.